What's going on, people? Welcome to a very special episode. We'll be talking about our new signing on loan, Sambi Lokonga, who's joined from Arsenal. I've got a very special guest. I'm joined by Dan Potts from the 12-Man podcast, AFTV. He does everything. He's on all the shows. He's going to give us all the insights about Lokonga. As always, if you do enjoy the video, make sure to smash the like button, subscribe, and also leave down your comments in the comment section down below, whether your thoughts about Lokonga changes based on what Pot says. But look, Dan, we've got one of your players. It's not Shamak this time. It's not Snogo. A player that's actually fairly young and has got room for potential. But before we actually get into his strengths and weaknesses, first of all, thank you for coming onto the show. I'm always on your channel. It's different coming onto this side of things, as you've said. But before we get into his strengths and weaknesses, as I mentioned, what type of player is he? For those who haven't watched him, where does he play? How has he been at Arsenal so far? How would you describe him?
This is a really difficult question to answer, D, because he's played a little bit of everywhere in midfield. So I can only give my opinion on where I think he's not good and where I think he is okay. Sambi Lokonga has not had much praise from many Arsenal fans since he's been a part of the club. And I do feel personally like some of that has been a little bit harsh at times. What I will say is that when he's been given the chance, he just hasn't really shone. And I think it's sometimes difficult when you're comparing him to Thomas Partey. He's not a Thomas Partey.
Yeah.
So for me, to answer your question, he's not a holding midfielder. This is not a player who's going to sit in front of your back four and spray the lines and what do they call it? And be the puppet master.
Yeah.
This guy for me has got passing quality, 100%. He can pass, he can see a pass, and definitely can keep the ball moving. But he's more of an 8 than a 6, if that makes sense. When we was playing him in pre-season, he actually looked all right, to be fair to him, over in Orlando. He was playing as a left 8. And there's always been that question mark over, can he do the Granit Xhaka role? Can he do the Thomas Partey role? And he hasn't really been able to do either, or at least consistently put in performances like that for Arsenal. So I think that's where the fans' criticism comes in. If you're talking about a position for him at Palace, I don't see how he can't do a job on as a 8 for you guys, because in the moment midfield, it's not like you're stacked in there, to be fair. So I think he can come in and do a job for you, but he's definitely not a holding midfielder. I felt a little bit sorry for him last season because I felt like he was thrown in the deep end a couple of times. When Thomas Partey got that injury, he was literally on his own in midfield. We played him in the FA Cup game against Forest where we lost last season, and he was next to Charlie Patino. Now, Charlie Patino has been a good player for Blackpool on loan this season, but it's a bit of a thrown in the deep end. When we played Brighton last season and we lost at the Emirates.
Can't mention them. We're not on your channel. You can't just use the word like Brighton. We're not on your channel now. You can't mention
I hate
them
mentioning
like
that word,
man.
But they're not in my good books at the moment, so that'll please your viewers. But listen, Granit Xhaka was playing at left back, which was a mad decision by Arteta. But that meant that Sambi Lokonga was holding on his own. Now, I don't really like that, and I don't like to look at how he's been kind of playing in those games because it was a thrown in the deep end type of game. Having said that, when he has come into the team, D, he hasn't really hit the ground running, and he's had really poor performances against some poor opposition. Oxford a few weeks ago, he was shambolic. Nottingham Forest, I've just mentioned. Brighton, there you go. Your viewers will like that. Shocking opposition. But when he has played against them, he just hasn't impressed. So that doesn't mean to say he's going to be an unbelievably poor player for Crystal Palace. I might add that. When we were scouting this guy, Vincent Kompany said this guy looks like he could be the potential next Yaya Toure. Thierry Henry said in the Belgium squad, this guy's going to be unreal. So we were all getting excited. I just haven't seen anything like that in an Arsenal shirt yet. So he's young, a lot of potential. You know, people are bigging him up. So let's see what he can do, man.
Yeah, look, I think certain players, when they go to big clubs, the expectations and matching them, it can be a bit difficult at times. And I watched a documentary, The All or Nothing at Arsenal.
Yeah.
And I think it was him that spoke about that. He's not in the right frame, right frame of mind during that time because he wasn't really playing as much. So I think his time at Arsenal, even though he has come on a few times and has had 6 appearances so far this season, I don't think he's had consistent game time like that for him to settle. And I feel like that's impacted him in a negative way because certain footballers, they just pick their heads up they're like, cool, I'm gonna focus hard. I'm gonna try get that spot back. But Arsenal, maybe how I'm seeing it is he didn't have that mentality, and I feel like a new environment could help all parties involved. But as I've just mentioned, he's only had 60 appearances so far this season, and that's down to the quality of players that you've got. But in terms of as a holding midfielder with two holding midfielders, don't you think that can work? Because that's what was potentially thinking to do. Not maybe with him, but as fans in the short term, anyways. Next to Cheikh Doucouré, who's another holding midfielder. Do you think that could potentially work, even if it's not by himself?
So you have to forgive me because I don't watch Palace every week. But
Yeah,
what I see of Doucouré, I actually really quite like him. I think he's a good player. The good thing about him is that he might complement Sambi Lokonga if he was alongside him for the reasons that he can actually do a lot of what Lokonga can't do. From what I've seen, and I've
yeah,
only seen parts of Doucouré. Um,
yeah.
Sambi Lokonga went to Old Trafford this season and put in 0 tackles. You can't do that. You can't do that if you're a
Yeah,
holding midfielder. So
yeah,
that worries me. His tackling is poor. It's not even that he goes in late. He just doesn't go in at all. He's not really that type. You know, you get like the Lucas Torreira type at Arsenal, who's just that little bull terrier who's just at your ankles all the time. He ain't one of those. He ain't a Patrick Vieira type who's got that presence, who's going in, he's quite gangly, who's going into those tackles and loving life. Listen, Patrick Vieira could make him and turn him into one of those. 100. He
that,
could do.
that's what I was going to go towards, because look, at Arsenal, yes, he has been struggling, but if you're talking about a manager and just someone who's an absolute legend in the game, in the Premier League, a midfielder, I think Vieira is the right
Mm,
man for him to develop, and that's
could
why I
well
feel
be,
like
man.
this move helps all parties involved, because you have 6 months with Patrick Vieira. There's some positives to his game, of course. He's not just an absolute terrible footballer, but defensively, he can definitely improve, especially with tackling. And who else would you want to improve your game than Patrick Vieira? And he's going to have lower expectations at Palace than he does at Arsenal as well. So all things, when you line him together, I think he could be a potential success, but it depends on how much work he's willing to put in. I think Vieira will help him. We've seen Vieira with other younger players and how much they've developed under him. So if you're putting everything together, I think it could work out. But in terms of making the deal permanent, let's say everything did work out, do you think Palace have a chance? Considering that you're looking to buy another midfielder potentially in summer.
I think you have a great chance. If there was a player stroke manager stroke coach that I would want to coach me, then it would be Patrick Vieira. I think he is, and I'm going to say this and be biased perhaps, but I think he's the best ever Premier League centre midfielder in the
After
Premier
Roy
League
Keane.
era. No, in front of Roy Keane. Uh, so for me, if you are Lokonga, you're going to learn a hell of a lot. And I understand the game's moved on, D. I get that. But when you're
Yeah.
learning off of Patrick Vieira, he is going to learn some very, very good things. Now, I don't think Arteta is set on some of the mentality of Sambi Lokonga. That doesn't mean he's going to be an absolute rogue when he goes to Palace, but Mikel Arteta has made it quite clear, hasn't he, that there's non-negotiables. Now, when he's coming out in the Amazon documentary and saying to Eddie Nketiah, I should be playing, and Eddie
Yeah.
Nketiah, a player who wasn't playing, who now is, says, come on, bro, you need to work
Let's
harder than that. You ain't going to walk
yeah.
into it. There's a
Mm.
worry there. The other worry for me is when he goes into the team on Friday night against Manchester City and we lose, who's the first who's the first name down the tunnel? Sambi Lokonga.
Mm.
There's rumours that he fell out with Mikel Arteta after that because he said that's not how you treat our fans. They've been brilliant to us. You go and clap them. You thank you for the support. Only 24 hours later, Monaco put in a bid. We reject it, and it's then looking like Sambi Lokonga's off. A loan deal suggests that Mikel Arteta still isn't finished with him, and he would be happy to see what he's like on loan. I actually thought Vincent Company may have come in and said, you know what, let's test Arsenal and see if he fancies a trip to the Championship. They're top of it, they're playing good football, and he absolutely loves the player. But when Palace came in, it made sense to me because, like I've just mentioned, Patrick Vieira will say, do you know what, let me see what I can do with this guy. There's something there. Can
Mm.
Palace make that permanent? Yes, you can, because we are looking to refresh our midfield in the summer. It's facts. We've got Xhaka, Partey, and now Jorginho, all of them the wrong side of 30 by the time we get to that summer. and it will get to a stage where we need to refresh because Partey is injury prone, Granit Xhaka's not getting any younger, and Jorginho is 31 and declining as a footballer. So that is not a very long-term bulletproof future for our midfield. Declan Rice is being mentioned, Caicedo we know about. I think they're the type of players we're looking in the summer at getting if things go right for Arsenal and we can prove that we're going in the right direction, which is looking good at the moment. So it doesn't look like long-term Lokonga could be an option for Arsenal as a definite. So I think if he was to do a good job for you, I don't think the price would be mad. I think you're looking at potentially between 10 to 15 million. We paid about 17. We can't expect to get more than that because I don't think personally he's proved at the moment that he's going to be worth more than that. If he has an absolute blinder, we might look to get 20 to 25, which for Palace might not be unreasonable. So I think it could be long term, man, if he was to have a good season with you guys, yeah.
Yeah, it's sounding positive in that aspect. And if you're talking about his attitude, I think if you once again going to Vieira, if you want a manager to help you fix your attitude, I know Arteta's been great, especially with coordinating the team. We've seen it in the Amazon documentary as well in terms of having that team cohesion. But if you want a manager that to tell you enough of these games, if you want to be this player, you have to fix up. It'll be Patrick Vieira. I truly believe that. So he's got big 6 months, Lokonga. But in terms of his stats, let's bring this up. And these are according to Football Reference. As we can see here, in terms of his percentile and certain stats, I mean, what's sticking out straight away is his pass completion. He's in the 98th percentile. And I think this is based on 800 minutes minimum played in the top 5 European leagues. Progressive passes, 93%. Passes attempted. So clearly in the passing category is very strong. Tackling is very scary, and it backs up what you said, and blocks as well. Funny enough, aerials one, he's quite high in that. But in terms of assists, very low. Shots, very low. Shot creating actions, he's created a few. So when you look at those stats, Dan, is there anything that surprises you, or does that pretty much sum him up as a player?
It sums him up massively as a player because, as I said to you, he can pass a football. He really can as well. By the way, it's not one of these guys who, when a midfielder can pass and everyone goes right.
Is he press resistant? Sorry to cut you off. Is he press resistant? Is he press resistant?
Yeah. I would say so. Again, 6 appearances, D. It's very hard to look at where he's at right now. Do you know what I'm saying? This is a player who I've seen very minimal amounts of. But what I would say is yes to that. I don't think you can look at him and say he's an all-round midfielder. He's definitely a really good passer, and it's really progressive passing. Most of his passes are not sideways backwards. He's not an El Neni, Granit Xhaka, Jorginho type where they're always going sideways or backwards. He is quite progressive with his passing. He's always looking to pass forward. And actually, when he first come into the team, alongside Maitland-Niles, believe it or not, they actually formed quite a good good partnership with a little bit of athleticism. And I think that's what the pair of them can actually bring to a club. The problem with Lokonga is if you want somebody to be your blocker, you want somebody to be your tackler, he ain't your guy. So if that's what you're bringing him in to do, I'm sorry to disappoint, but you're going to find very quickly that does not happen. Now, Vieira can probably try and work on that with him and he might get a bit better. But as you see from those stats, he's not proven that's a part of his game yet. I think when you look at somebody who's trying to create something, trying to pass forward, that's your guy. So as long as you've got somebody who can do that job behind him or alongside him, I think he could be an okay player for Palace, yeah.
Yeah. So that's my final question. Out of 10, how much of success do you see him being at Palace?
So if I was to ask you the question about, if I was to answer the question about what success he's been at Arsenal, I'd say a 5, because he hasn't really been given amazing opportunities yet. And the opportunities that he has been given, he hasn't really taken them. In terms of Palace, I'm going to give him, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, because I do believe that Arsenal and Palace are on different. They're just different at the moment. Like we're going
this season, anyways.
Top of the season, this season.
A
few seasons ago, we might have been a bit closer.
Next season, it won't be that far off. Don't worry.
Well, we'll see, man. We'll see. You need to do a lot of catching up, bro. If you want that to,
Oh no, don't worry. We won't have to do the catching up. You'll just naturally, come back.
Oh, you think we're coming back down? Okay. Out of 10, what do I give this transfer? I'm going to give it a 6. I can't say it's going to be 7 or 8 because I haven't seen enough to go, wow, this guy's quality is going to be amazing for you. Perhaps that's a little bit harsh. He can prove us wrong. He can prove Palace wrong. He can prove Arsenal fans wrong. He could go, do you know what? What were Arsenal complaining about? This guy looks wicked for us. Or you can go, yeah, Arsenal were right. This guy's shocking. So I hope for your sake that he's a 7 or 8 out of 10 and it does a good job for you. I'm trying to think of where in the midfield you've got Milivojevic, who I think is kind of a squad player now. Decore's come in. You've got Eze. You've got Jeffrey Schlupp. Am I missing somebody?
No. So it'd be most likely Eze as a number 10, and then you have Decore. He can change up to a 4-3-3 or could do 4-2-3-1. I think 4-3-3 probably suits him better, especially if he's a number 8, and can press high up the pitch and control the midfield like that. But Vieira can also play him as 2 number 6s alongside Decore. So there's different combinations. But look, he should start ahead of Jeffrey Schlupp. If he doesn't, then that's worrying.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that he's got an opportunity to do that. And I think that the difference between Palace signing this Arsenal player is he's young and he's got potential to grow with Palace. And you've got a potential to keep him. When you signed Flamini and Shamak and Sanogo, their times were done, man. Do you know what I'm saying? They were trying to revive their career with you guys and it weren't going to happen. I don't think
he was a director of a company that's worth like billions. He was trying to become the next Jeff Bezos when he was with Palace. He wasn't even thinking about football. And then Shamak, don't get me wrong, Shamak, I think majority of the Palace fans watching this, they all say Shamak is actually a decent player for us.
He actually did all right.
No, but he actually helped us. Sonoga, Shamak, I was there when they both scored for Palace. I mean, that was a special day that I never thought I'll see both of them on score sheet. But yeah, look, with Lokonga, I'm positive. I'm positive based on the things that you said as well. I think there is room for improvement, but I think that could happen at Palace for all the various reasons that we've listed. And also, he's joining not a bigger club, but a better club. So naturally, his game will improve as well with a better manager in the long run.
Is that right? Okay, so he's joining a top quality club now in Palace with a brilliant manager.
Top quality club, just a top 15 Premier League club.
Yeah, listen, I hope he does good for you, man. I wish him all the best. I hope he does well for you, and I hope that you can pick yourself up because Patrick Vieira is one of my favourite ever players and one of my heroes. So I hope that things go well for Palace. Of course I do, man. But I do have a fear.
Arsenal. I hope it goes well. I hope you lot win the league as well.
Do you actually? Are you trolling me?
Let's end the show right there. If you have enjoyed it, leave a like, subscribe.
I bet you don't. You want City to win it.
Content. That's it from me and Dan. Thank you, Dan, for once again jumping on. Make sure to check out the Talk Man podcast channel where I'll be on there as well. And until next time, up the Palace.